true essence of building junk from junk. Somewhere over the junk pile. Man, this thing feels so good. In the yard. What's up, guys? It's Gary. So we're finally going to get back to work on this Craftsman GT5000 project. It's going to be another hot rod tractor. So hopefully there's some new people watching. So if there is, I'm going to show you the other hot rod tractor and kind of understand what I do here. I build junk from junk. You know, you got some people that build some really nice stuff here on YouTube. Like, you got the Cars and Cameras guys. They absolutely kill it. They build some of the craziest, most beautifully fabricated machines that there are. I don't do that. I build junk from junk. So I like to take what I have laying around, and I also like to repurpose things from whatever machine I'm working on, and I end up with stuff like this. So this is what I call the hot rod tractor. And there are quite a few videos with this machine. I built it actually before I even had YouTube, but it is a highly modified LT2000 Craftsman tractor. And I'm not going to go into every detail on this. I'm not even going to show you much, because you can go back and find in the video everything you need to know about the hot rod tractor. But basically, as you can see, it is a bunch of junk connected to some junk. Same thing with that one, but I am going to tear that all down and do something totally different with that one. And then, of course, we got a pile of parts here, which is going to be something eventually. So I'm going to throw together kind of a short compilation to kind of get you guys up to speed as to where this machine started out, like what this looked like when I started and where it is now. I'm not going to show everything because there is a couple of videos on the actual things we've done so far, and we need to get back to work. So I've come to the conclusion that I talk way too much, and I just need to let the video speak for itself. We're not getting anything done if we're just talking about what I've already done. So if there's anything I missed, anything you're specifically interested in, put it down in the comments. Any ideas you have, even if you want to see something, if you have any questions, I might be able to do a video about it. So I am always glad to see you guys down in the comments. I'm going to try to get some actual work done. I notice I just always talk way too much. I could sit here and talk all day long just about what I've done so far, and I'm not getting any work done. So let's go ahead and get something done on this, see where we end up with. You do see that we have the horizontal shaft opposed twin, and it is connected. That idler pulley was actually original to the machine, and it was mounted vertically, like it was mounted you know, like this, so that the belt would come off of it, and that was in the system. Right after that, it started twisting and going back, and that's how the clutch was originally. Now, the clutch used to mount, I believe, right there. So, actually, no, sorry. The clutch mounted right there. See that big round witness mark right there. So, all we've done here is we moved the clutch forward a little bit. Also, in turn, we have everything is still the original linkage. So, the original clutch linkage, and we just moved the clutch mechanism, or the clutch pedal mechanism, forward. These holes were already in the frame. I just made them a bit bigger so they would fit, and the bushing is in there and everything. but we're going to end up making our pedal come off. We're going to probably just basically cut that off, and we're going to weld our clutch pedal right to that. We want our feet in the frame, not on the outside of the frame like on the other machine. So as you can see, everything just kind of fell into place. So now we just have the opposite action happening, pulling our clutch this way. And I mean, look at this. That's beautiful, right? Look at, we got a nice, tight, very tight belt. So now what we're working on is the steering. This big plate here, that used to be a steering box for a Murray frame. Like just this metal plate, and it had kind of like a gear like that, like a sector gear kind of steering box gear. So I had that laying around, and I just drilled it out so that I could bolt my regular style, like next-gen Craftsman, second-gen Craftsman steering box to it. The best steering box you can have. Basically, I'm just going to weld that plate right up into place, because it actually sits right on the edge of the frame rails on both sides, just enough. So I'm going to go ahead and just weld that. Oh boy. Yeah, this is a lot heavier than I thought. Oh yeah. Stand up a little higher, so don't need to really go all the way over, I guess. That's what we're working with right there. I just got 4 tacks just to hold it in place, and this piece, by the way, I only put there to just hold that so that it wouldn't fall out. That's not necessary at all, so we're going to take that off. We'll do a couple of nice welds, you know, boop, 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 boop. I don't think we need to go too crazy. And so that will now, of course, obviously be for our steering box, but it also is going to reinforce the chassis greatly. Right now, the only thing really tying the chassis together is that front piece, and obviously the transaxle. Oh, and I guess the rear. The rear is actually holding it to the rear frame section here is tying it together. But yeah, that'll drastically improve our chassis rigidity. And since we have a pivoting axle on this one, we're not too worried about being able to flex crazy with the chassis. Oh, hell yeah. That's like one of my best welds ever. I think we're pretty good with that. All right, so now that we got our steering box mounted, we got to figure out the steering column. So we have to modify what we have here. This universal joint is actually off of a car. This used to be on my hot rod tractor, and then I got a new setup for that, and I repurposed this for the other machine. This just is bolted on to here. So what I need to do is actually shorten this. This is an uncut original steering column for the mower steering box. So I need to shorten it. It's probably going to be somewhere around here. I got to mock up and figure out where we need to shorten it. Because right now, with the steering where it's going to end up being, it's going to be way too steep of an angle, and I don't think that's going to work properly like that. So we're going to shorten it down there, and that'll get the steering column to have a less steep angle. Now, of course, how we're going to actually connect up to it, how we're going to actually support this is the real important thing. So another piece, the way that this was mounted to the other machine that I took it off of was it had this pipe that I set up, and it was going directly into the dashboard. Now this doesn't have a dashboard like a regular mower does. So we got this guy. This is how it was on the other machine. Just like that. This was where it was mounted to, basically through the stock dashboard. So what I'm going to do is figure out, first I'm going to cut this down, then we're going to figure out what we are going to use out of the junk pile to basically straddle this and come out and down so that our legs can go inside of that. Instead of it going, you know, straight down in the middle, we could do that. You know, we could easily just have basically something go down and mount in the middle and have our legs go around it, but I don't want to do that. So let me figure out where I got to cut this. I'll cut it, and then we will go from there. All right, now I just need to grind that shaft so that that square actually fits over it. Hard to see, but there we go. Now we're talking. That's beautiful. How about now? One thing I did not anticipate is that cutting that shorter made the steering wheel also go further that way, away from me. That's way too far away. So we're going to have to pretty much come up with something to extend this. That kind of sucks. Yeah, I don't know why I wasn't thinking about that. I think the angle's going to be okay though. I think with the steering wheel about, you know, when it's a little bit closer to me, it'll be good. But that's perfect, except for the distance. All right, so for our steering column support, we are, of course, going to the junk pile. Now, one thing that is kind of a challenge for me when I'm building something like this out of junk is I don't necessarily know if the junk that I have is going to work the way I want it to unless I really just commit and start cutting it up and mocking it into place. You know, unlike if you go to the store and you just buy material, you can take a straight piece of material and kind of start piecing things together and say, okay, this is going to work, this is how I'm going to build it. In this case, we have something that clearly needs to be chopped up to use it. And what this is this is an old go-kart frame. There's part of it. There's part of it. It ends up being a lot lower than I was expecting. So I was expecting this support to kind of come up almost to the height of where the hood's going to be, but actually it's really going to be quite down low. You can see that grinded section there is what we need to weld to. Obviously the steering column will be up. So I'm going to end up mocking the steering column into place where it needs to be and start kind of figuring things out. You bloody bastard. All right, we are getting somewhere, and those pieces here, the sides and the top, are not even the pieces that I showed you before. Not really what I was planning on doing either. So as I told you earlier, I was planning on welding something down here. What I'm still going to do is I'm probably just going to triangulate to that so that it's obviously got more, it's going to need more support right there. That's not going to, it might be enough. With this completely connected, that really shouldn't go anywhere, but I'd like to probably triangulate that. It just seems right. And we're really tucked in this thing now, so our feet are going to be here. You know, our legs are going to be going through that. Like I said, when you build junk from junk, you don't really know what you're doing until you start welding things together. So, yeah, let's kind of figure out the next step. And the next step is going to be chopping the bottom off here and figuring out how we are going to connect it to the frame. What I'd like to do is actually have that bolt to the frame. I'm not just going to weld that to the frame. I could just weld it to the frame, but like I said earlier, in order for all of this to be able to come apart, that's going to have to bolt to the frame. Otherwise, the steering, well, actually the steering box should still technically come off. Yeah, I want it to bolt to the frame, not weld to the frame, I think. Alright, so check it out. I figured out how I'm going to connect it to the frame. We're going to take another piece of the piece that we cut up. And check it out. We got this. Oh, you're all out of focus. We got this kind of flange here. I'm just going to chop this off right here. Just going to leave the piece of pipe on there. I'm just going to chop it right there. That will bolt to the frame. And that guy will weld up to that. All right, there we have it. It's all bolted on. I still got to finish welding it. It's still just tacked in place on all the joints. But that's our guy right there. And it's nice and stiff, moves the whole frame. Everything seems to be quite lovely. What I'm thinking is I may still, somehow I'm going to reinforce this. I'm not sure if I'm going to just like maybe gusset it here or if I'm going to run a bar from like here to here. Something, you know, along those lines. Man, this thing feels so good. I mean, this is incredible. It feels good and it looks like, it gives me a vibe. It makes me just think awesome feelings while I'm looking at what I'm sitting in here. All right, clutch pedal. So the clutch pedal on these mowers, on all mowers, typically came out right here and went up on the outside of the frame. Long ago, I cut that off when we started doing this project. What we have here is something from the junk pile left. What was that? I believe that was a seat bracket. That's something that goes underneath the seat, I think. Well, anyway, I just chopped out, you can see this side is solid. Chopped that guy out, and we got that piece of material still there. I already stuck a vice grip on there and kind of figured out how much pedal travel we need to operate the clutch, and therefore how much clearance it's going to need. And I just took and basically marked our angle of attack right there, so we know the pedal in a normal position has to be about that angle. We're just going to take this guy and, well, I still got to maybe grind the weld out of there a little bit. More or less, this guy's going to kind of go in that position. I'm going to knock it all the way on there so that notch is all the way down. And our angle is going to be more like, you know, up like that. So as I was editing this, I realized I never actually filmed welding that on there, but there really wasn't much to see. I made it fit, I welded it on there, and then I made a strengthening gusset, which I proceeded to weld on the wrong side of the pedal from where I wanted it. So let's go ahead and take a look at the results. All right, well, I figured I'd push it outside so we can actually get some better lighting and get an idea of the work. Take a look at what we've done so far. On one hand, I'm really annoyed about this clutch pedal. But on the other hand, we have a functional clutch pedal. So let me show you what I did that annoys me. Yeah, let's just take a look. All right, so I had the pedal on there, and I welded it to the you know, the crossbar there. And I flipped the thing up on its side to weld underneath it. And then I said, you know what, I'm going to need to reinforce this a little bit more. So I had a piece that I was going to have on the back side of that clutch pedal. Then I realized, well, wait a minute, if I just disconnect the linkage, I could put this thing back on its wheels and just flip the pedal over and weld it from the top. Well, I did that. Except for I flipped the pedal the wrong way. And I didn't realize till I was done. You know, I could cut it off, but it'd probably be a pain. I mean, it's... let me see if we can get a better... Even out here in the daylight, I can't get good lighting. There you go. So, this piece was meant to go on the other side and actually be more like flat up against the pedal and be some strength. Now, the good news is it still feels really good on my foot. So, I don't know if I want to go trying to cut that off of there. Because also the weld doesn't even look good. I mean, it's a functional weld, but it doesn't look good enough to where I'm happy with it. You know, I was thinking I wanted just that nice flat pedal, and I was going to maybe put some like grip tape on it or something. So I don't know. I may just end up cutting that off and doing it around the back like I meant to. What a pain that's going to be, cutting that off. But the good news is we do have a functional clutch pedal. So hop on board with me, and I'll show you. Oh, so of course, you know, we're really tight in this pedal box. We're going to have a throttle pedal about here and a brake somewhere in here, and I don't think we're going to be able to, damn, we're not even going to be able to left foot brake, are we? But anyway, let me move my other foot. You can see we have a functional clutch pedal. Well, now we got to figure out getting our steering wheel on there, get our steering hooked up, and a lot of other things. Alright, so we need a throttle pedal for this thing, and now I'm going to show you the true essence of building junk from junk. So let's actually go over to the junk pile and see what we can find. Now, somewhere over here, somewhere over the junk pile, there's a motorcycle frame. It happens to be a 60s Honda CB77, and I will use my brain. Yeah, so there's definitely something on that frame that I can use for a throttle pedal. We might even be able to make something work off this deck. Stay tuned. Somewhere over the junk pile in the yard, we'll find the parts we need to build this machine, and then we'll drive it far. Now I am going to show you how to build your junk from junk. We might even make a steering wheel using a lug nut and a piece of pipe. Alright, let's get back to work. Alright, I am seriously the king of repurposing junk. Check out what we got going on for the throttle here. So for the throttle here, I was eyeing up this old shifter. This is off of an old 60s Honda motorcycle. Will it focus? No, but you get the idea. There was already a hole in my foot shield here, and I lined that up, drilled a hole in the frame. Mighty tight to that idler pulley, but it's going to just clear. And I'm thinking about how can I use this as my throttle pedal? Okay, well, the problem is we don't have a bushing here, right? So this would have been on the actual bushing surface, I think, is on the engine. So check this out. Mower parts. I got a couple of mower deck pulleys here. So this guy right here, you just take a socket and you knock the center out of that. And you have yourself basically a bushing. I mean, it's not like an actual bushing. It's not like bronze. But it allows us to go from that size hole to that size hole. And it does indeed ride in there nice and smoothly. So with a little bit of grease, that is a bushing. And now, it doesn't quite make it on one end, but I had another one laying around. Well, this is the one I took apart. And I'm about to knock that one out. And we'll have one on both ends. So we'll be able to actually bolt it on there. And then I have the pin that goes in here. And we'll be able to put a throttle cable on. Now, I did just eyeball it as far as, like, you know, how much travel am I going to be able to get out of the cable, and I don't know for sure if that's going to work. So we're just going to wing it and see what happens, because this is aluminum too, so we can't easily modify it. I don't have a TIG welder, and I don't have aluminum wire to MIG weld it. So with this piece, it is what it is. If it doesn't work, we'll move on to something else. There we have it. There is our bush. Now I'm just going to take a little bit of grease. And there you go. This one's a little tight on this side, but that's why I'm going to just put a little bit of grease in it. That one, as you can see, spins beautifully. And I noticed too, they don't quite go in and bottom out. They actually touch each other, which is actually perfect, because that means we can tighten up our bolt, tighten everything up, and not have to, like, back it off to get it to move. Alright, so there's a throttle pedal, still connecting it is a thing. Now what I'm going to end up doing is, obviously, this is not a fully threaded bolt, so it's just stuck through, and then that's bolted there, and there's nothing to truly tighten it down. But what I'm going to probably just do is, I'm just going to tack weld the bolt to the frame out here. Alright, that is absolutely brilliant indeed. Is that beautiful or what? So check it out. We still have our hole for the pin. I have a pin that goes through here, has a little hole in it. Our cable's going to go to that. Drilled another little hole to put this spring in. This is just some random spring that I thought was way too strong, but every other spring I had was way too weak. We drilled our other hole. I put a long bolt so it's nylocked and bolted down, and then I have another nut on top, and the spring is captured between two washers. So that is our throttle pedal, and that is freaking awesome. So we now have a part from a 1960s Honda motorcycle on here. Alright, so we got to modify our tie rod in order to get the alignment correct, because with the different J spindles I put on here, and the fact that we are running the tie rod on the bottom instead of the top due to clearance issues, for now, I'm just going to cut and modify the stock tie rod. Now, I actually don't recommend that you even use the stock tie rods, because the ends of them, they're just really chintzy. They tend to sometimes pop. The ball will pop right out of there. They're not all adjustable either. A lot of these mowers don't have adjustable tie rods. So the one that was actually on this machine is this, and it was just non-adjustable. But the rod is a nice solid thick steel rod, and what you want to do is get some bolts and weld them to the ends and put Heim joints on them. That's how I did it on my other one. So in order to just get this thing driving right now, I have an idea to make this work. So you see I cut it down the middle, and I want to sleeve it, but I don't have anything to sleeve it with. I was looking at this, which not that thick, and it's also not the right diameter. It's too fat, it's too big. I'm going to take this. I've never done this method before. I'm going to try it and see how it works. This is a solid piece. It was actually a steering shaft or steering column on a mower. I'm going to cut just this end part off, and that'll give me just the right length, basically. I'm going to try to drill into this on both sides. I don't know if it's going to drill, how it's going to drill, but that tie rod is not very thick. So if I can drill that size, then I can actually, even if I just get it in like a 1/2 inch, I'd feel better about welding that up than if I just butt welded it. We're not going to go down the road at 30, 40, 50 miles an hour like this. We're just getting it like this, kind of putting it together so that we could put it around and drive it for now, and then we will upgrade to the proper stuff. Alright, it actually drills pretty easy. I started with a smaller bit. Of course, I eyeballed it so it's not perfectly centered. It doesn't really have to be. So we're going to need to jump right on up to the 1/2 inch bit in order to fit that guy in there. I gotta say, these Harbor Freight drill bits work pretty good. Look at that. Is that beautiful or what? I love it. And of course, I drilled the hole way crooked, so you're laughing at me and saying, no, that's not very beautiful. That's really bad. It's alright. We'll bore it out a little bit. It'll be fine. Alright, so actually, that is perfect. The amount that I bored the holes out is 100% perfect. Now, I'll make sure, see how it's sagging a little bit down? I'll just push it up and make sure it's perfectly straight before I weld it. I still got to pull it back off and grind it, prep it for welding. Alright, so now the drag link needs to be connected to the steering box. And on everything else I've done, I've had to actually extend the drag link. Because usually when you put the axle out in front, obviously now the steering drag link will be further away from the steering box. But in this case, we have an entirely different steering box, and we've actually moved it forward. It's as forward as it could possibly go. It's literally under the engine. So we need to shorten this. I'm not going to use the original piece because it does not have the little kind of fat part that locates in this steering box because it was on a different steering box. This is actually a tie rod from the old Husqvarna mower I had. And you can see it has the little kind of locating point, and it fits in that hole correctly. So I'm just going to chop this guy off and do the same thing. We are using part of the original tie rod at the front, and the thing is, on this, it's almost a straight shot. Well, it's basically a straight shot right to it. Unlike some of the other ones where they have like a dip and they have to go from a certain level up and up to the level of the box. You bastard. You're really not. Oh, the ground freaking came off slightly. There we go. Perfect. I don't know if you guys can tell, also, I changed the wheels. I put these tires on different wheels. So the wheels that the tires were on were rear wheels. They did not have bushings or anything. They were just metal on metal, you know, put grease in there. They were keyed rear wheels for a 3/4 axle. And because of that, they were really wide. So the tires had that really funky looking stretch to them. And now these tires are on the appropriate, actually the original front 8-inch front wheels for this machine. And so there's bushings and they look way better on those wheels. And functionally, they're actually probably a little bit taller because of that as well. So that's pretty sweet. All right, so check out what we got going on here. That used to be a lug nut. That lug nut happens to thread onto our steering column. Now I showed you we are going to, which end is it? We're going to basically weld the pipe to that steering hub. That way we can just slide it on there and then put a through bolt to locate it. We're still doing that. But to really get this baby on there solid and perfectly straight, what I'm going to do is take this guy, and I also drilled that hole out a bit bigger. I couldn't get it any farther than that because the spline, I think, is hardened in there. That baby will drop in there perfectly like that. We will weld that. And then this will actually, well, you can trust me when I tell you, and you'll see when I'm done. That actually, that nut fits inside of here perfectly tight. So that'll go on there, and we'll weld that to this. And then we'll be able to take the entire thing and just thread it right on there, get it straight, and then drill our through hole on the shaft. And that thing really ain't going anywhere at that point. Fucker. Get ready, bastard. Nothing more annoying than welding something that's round. Alright, we got our steering wheel threaded on. I went ahead and drilled a 1/4 inch hole right on through the center there. And here's our bolt, and the steering wheel fit on there perfectly. It almost actually tightened right up in the position that it needs to be in, and then I just had to back it off a couple degrees to get it lined up with the steering. Unfortunately, right now our drag link is not adjustable, so hopefully everything will be lined up. In the future, we'll probably put some heim joints on all of that anyway, but there goes our locking. And I don't know if it's necessary. I feel like I kind of want to put another one just to have two for extra, you know, just to be safe. But that should be fine. All right, we now have steering. Wow, look at that. That actually works. Now there is a bunch of on-play center because of our axle, the way we have that pivot set up. So I don't know exactly what I'm going to do about that. It might just be a matter of, with it driving around off-roading, we'll have it. I was thinking about putting pins in it. So instead of bolting it solid, I'll drill and I'll actually have pins. Basically stick a pin in there, put a cotter pin through it. It'll lock the axle solid for like higher speed handling kind of stuff, and then we can unpin it so that it pivots. There's only so much articulation it's going to be able to have anyway, but I do want to try it out with the articulating front axle. But other than that, I mean, You know what's cool? Man, that almost feels... Oh, is it going to drive the steering box right out of there? Oh, no, it's maxing out the... That's interesting. So we might have to put a steering stop on it. It's actually supposed to have one, I think, on the steering box. Because it's got enough, like, extra flexibility in the steering that it almost wants to drive the main steering gear right out of the steering box, but then not turn the wheels any further. But what I was about to say is this thing turns more than any of the other ones I have. The full lock on this thing is actually pretty wild. Yeah, and it, okay, so did I not get the... Oh no, it is, okay, yeah, I see it. I might have had the steering box slightly not centered when I did that, but yeah, that's gonna turn the steering box right out of the... There is a way I could fix that. I could always maybe reclock this or some... Oh no, I can reclock the steering box, that's right. We could actually just disconnect the steering drag link, drive the steering gear right out of the steering box, turn it a little bit, then drive it back in, and it'll reclock it so that it's actually perfectly centered. I think that's the thing. I'm just not... I don't have the steering box when it's in the dead center position. I think I might be a little off from center on the steering box. But yeah, this is actually really good. How is it going to handle? How's it going to drive? Well, with all that play on center, because of the... What's happening is the whole entire axle is moving. But, you know, we'll try it. We'll see how it drives. So, I'm actually thinking about, now that I see how it looks, and it's really the small wheels and tires, especially on the front, that I think is making it look funny for me. I might end up taking the big 25-inch four-wheeler tires I got on the 12-inch wheels and making them work on this. It is a low-range, high-low-range gearbox, so it is more of an off-roading machine, just for that sake alone. Like, kind of seems like it should just be an off-road, more off-road focused. So maybe that would be the way to go. But either way, I'm not going to traditionally hold the camera in front of me like this to say goodbye, because here we are and we're talking, right? I could just say goodbye to you right now. So that's going to be the end of this video. A whole bunch more work to come on this. I have the brake pedal. I don't have it figured out, but I have a brake pedal. I have another piece from that motorcycle frame, which was actually the brake pedal. So remember, we used the shift, the little shift. What would you call it? A shift pedal? The shifter. We used the shifter off of that motorcycle frame. So I actually have the brake pedal I found in the pile of parts that I have. I have a bunch of parts for that motorcycle frame up under the shelf over there. It looks like it's going to be absolutely perfect for a brake pedal. It's a really tight squeeze in here to have my feet with 3 pedals, but I think we can make it work. We got to do the cable to the throttle. We got to do the shifter. We got to have some kind of floor pan in here, at least right where my feet are. And an exhaust system, and we got to make it look cooler. You know, we need a hood. Whether it's that Alice Chalmers hood or something else. We got to come up with something. I have another old hood, but it's really big. But it might look okay if we put the big tires on it. So, if that's not enough of me talking, like I always do, I just go on and on. Now I can outro this video properly and say, if you like what you just saw, like the video. If you have something to say, go ahead and comment down below. And if you really want to keep watching this channel, I would suggest that you subscribe. That would really help out. And share. Share it with your friends. Tell everybody. Tell them to come on over here. This guy's crazy. He builds junk from junk. And that is true in every sense of the word. So, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Ooh, that hurts. Somewhere over over the junk pile in the yard. We'll find the parts we need to build this machine, and then we'll drive it far.